Hello, welcome to my first podcast. My first time setting up everything, so it took me like a while until I get my computer actually set up to actually do this a lot better. So I just wanted to test it out today. My name is Cassandra Reyes, and I'm the author of a couple of books. One is Son of Alice in Wonderland, which came out last year and is available on Barnes & Nobles and Amazon. It's basically the story of what if the Mad Hatter and Alice got married, and they had a son, and she gets kidnapped when he's 19. She gets kidnapped back into Wonderland, and so his father kind of tells him, reveals to him that he's a Mad Hatter, and that Wonderland is true, and that he has to go into Wonderland to save his mother, which is what he does. So he kind of takes on the mantle of the Mad Hatter while he's in there. So it's a really fun story. I had been working on that one since I drew the original image for it. I did the cover for it also. It's called the Son of Alice in Wonderland cover, and that was done like back in 2011, and then the story kind of grew from there, and I hadn't really finished it. I had began like maybe a couple chapters, and then last year when my mother passed away, I started going back to trying to finish it, and I think I'd been working on it though since 2018 when my dad passed away, so I just continued working on that story and building on it, and so I finally got it done and edited as best I could, and then I got it available. So I've done at least 3 edits on it to fix up all the bad grammar, little things that I didn't catch initially. So that one you can get on Amazon, you can get it on Barnes & Nobles, you can get it on Google Play. It's called Son of Alice in Wonderland, and the author is me, Cassandra Reyes. So we're not going to be talking about that book though. We're going to be talking about my new book, which Lord willing I'll be having it available this summer. So a lot of you that are off for the summer and kind of bored, not sure what to do, you can go ahead and pick up this book and read it. So let me go ahead and get into the name of the book and what it's about, and a little bit of my background. I've been drawing and writing since I think back in 2008. I started drawing and writing the story for my own comic book, which is another thing that is available on Webtoons. And that comic book is called Jagged Nightmare, which is a story about a boy who's abused by his father. He passes away, and then he comes back, and he winds up being adopted by this pastor. And so when he turns about, I'd say about 22, his adopted father passes away, and so he becomes the new pastor. And while he's kind of dealing with the stress of losing the only real father that he ever had, he winds up turning into Jagged Nightmare, which is like an alternate personality that he has the ability to turn into, and he starts saving other children from abusive situations. And so and he's not aware that he's doing that. So at night he's a different person, and then during the day he's this guy that's trying to become take the place of the pastor role in his church. So it's like this conflicting thing, and it was all drawn in black and white, and like I got a lot of comparisons at the time to The Crow by James Avar, so I went ahead and checked out his comics, and I got to meet him, showed him my work, and I never really got to finishing that one, so hopefully I can go back and finish it one day. But you can find the first 3 issues of it, at least a version of it, on webtoons.com. Again, that's Jagged Nightmare with an extra K. I don't know why I added extra K, but it stuck. And Nightmare with a K in the beginning, like you would say queens and knights, so Nightmare. But that's initially where I started writing and drawing, trying to do a little bit of comic book drawing myself. And I mean, I did okay. I think I'm better at doing just illustrations in general. So I did continue to do some art, and during that time when I was working on Jacket, I came up with this story idea, which is the one that I'm talking about right now. It's called Project VII. And at that time it was called Project VII, The Blood Chronicles. And I was like so inspired by, I loved Devil May Cry 4 and Devil May Cry 3 with Dante and Nero, Virgil. Sorry about that. So I got that kind of inspiration that the main character David of Project 7 would have that kind of like an attitude, and that he was fighting these kind of werewolf creatures, and he himself had almost like a little bit of a vampire look to him. And I think at that time he had the wing. I think that was inspired by Final Fantasy VII. I would say this book is kind of a combination of Final Fantasy VII and Devil May Cry mixed in with kind of a real world situation, more realistic, probably more like Devil May Cry 5, I guess. And then it has like the spiritual aspect and then the science aspect to it. So the character that I drew initially is David Ryder. So he's the star of the book. And I started like beginning to write the beginning chapter back, I would say back in 2011 maybe. And we went through a lot of family kind of situations. So I never got to, I just kind of like left off at that. And I had a lot of projects that I didn't really finish. On a more personal note, I was dealing with, we had a sister that had issues with alcoholism, and my parents unfortunately did a lot to enable her to continue that habit, and so she stayed with us, and it was like it was a very stressful time going through that with her there, and so I just lost inspiration to really do anything. So I kind of put these stories off in the back front, and just kind of came into a role where I was just trying to protect my sanity and trying to like kind of guide my parents, trying to help them. And it just seems like they were just people that just didn't want my help. So it was just very frustrating. So that's why I just kind of quit this writing the stories. And then in 2018, my father just passed away, just suddenly. And he left us kind of a mess, so we had to deal with all of that, me and my mother. And then my sister, of course, her alcoholism was progressive, and you know, we tried to we just didn't want her to stay with us in our new home because of what she was going, you know, what she would cause, and because she didn't want to change. And so when all that was happening, I kind of went back to writing Project 7, or just finishing Son of Alice in Wonderland up, and then going back and looking at Project 7 and kind of brushing up what I had written, maybe the first 2 chapters or so. And so I continue working on that, and we went through a lot during that time, so we had issues with, especially with finances and with my sister. And finally she ended up in detention. So that gave us a little bit of leeway to start having a little more freedom. And I started writing a little bit more. And then we had the pandemic happen. And then I started writing some more. And by 2021, or 2020, 2021, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, so and my sister got released from detention. So she came back, and you know, I'm grateful. Even though she was still abusing, she was still kept it together and helped me take care of my mother for this last 6 months that she was with us. And so during that time, we got caught up in what we're gonna do. with the house and with our finances, and you know, my sister being there, and she managed to stay with us for at least, you know, 3 more months before we realized that she was abusing again, and that, you know, she had already kind of made her choice. And so we had to let her go, which was like the hardest decision of my life. And when that happened, I just like continued working on the story, and just trying to get my mind off of everything around me. And day after Thanksgiving, I found out that my sister had passed away. So after all that happened, I was definitely looking for a way to just to have like kind of an escapism of what, you know, was going on around me. And you know, thankfully my brother helped me out a lot during that time, so we're just kind of in this together, trying to figure out what to do. And once everything was kind of settled, we wound up, you know, getting the finances settled, and we kind of now had this kind of period of leeway where we could just kind of, you know, kind of heal from all this stuff that we'd been going through. I went back to writing this book and just expanding on it, and adding more to it. So basically, let's get into what the book is about. And this beautiful drawing right here, I commissioned a person, a lady from Japan. She's an amazing artist, and she's on Instagram. I give her some credit on the videos that I post. She does wonderful drawing of the main character, and it's based on the original character that I did initially. So start with the book, I guess. The main character is a 17-year-old boy. The main character is a 17-year-old boy who is the son of a billionaire. He's kind of a celebrity himself, and so he gets kidnapped one night, and he's taken to this facility where they start to experiment on him. And so he goes through that horrible experimentation on him, and he winds up escaping about 7 years later. And so he doesn't realize that that time has passed. So he tries to escape the first time, but the second time he does escape, but it's already been 7 years. And so he's in kind of a new world where everything is different than he remembers, and he's also dying because he's in this. He requires feeding on blood to keep alive, like a vampire. So he is found, and he's taken in by this local, like a street preacher turned good doer, who runs a facility. It's like a makeshift emergency ward for people that are overdosing or something, or, you know, people that he finds on the street that need help. He kind of fixes them up there at this makeshift place. It's like called the Sanctuary. It's like initially was a Catholic church that he acquired and started using. And so he finds David with his assistant Max. He's a teenage boy, and they take him in, and they start taking care of him and kind of like getting him back to the way he was. And so Caleb, who is the street preacher that takes him in, has already been kind of investigating what's going on, because he's found that there's a lot of people that are like that were street people that went in for some money for some medical experiments and then just never seen again. And so he kind of puts it together that David is part of this experiment, and that he has survived, and he's the only survivor that he finds. And so as he's healing, they kind of work together to try to figure out who's behind it. And in the midst of that, David becomes kind of like a superhero that kind of helps fight these creatures that are attacking the city. So this basically, I guess, where the DMC comparison comes in, because he has kind of like a Nero / Dante attitude, and he fights these creatures, and he's got these abilities where, you know, he's fast and strong, and he can shift his features into the vampire features and then shift them back to a regular guy. So basically that's what the story's about. And so it's taken me about, I think, about 2 years, I think, to finish writing this book. And I'm still in the process of editing it, and also finding some people that are going to give me some advanced reviews on it. But it's about 293 pages long. Actually, I think it's a little bit less than that, because I'm going by this initial copy. So right here is my little printout, Project VII, just to see how it read and everything, so I'll go back and fix it. So let me show you a little bit more of the artwork. I guess let's start with this one. This is David when he's 17. I use a website called Artbreeder and .com, where you can get free public use templates that you can use to edit and create your own characters. So I got this template of him, and this isn't exactly what he looks like. Actually, I took the template, I put it onto Photoshop, and I started changing his eyes and a lot of the features and the hair color and everything. And so this is David initially when he's 17 and he gets abducted. And then I have this kind of this one right here is David when he's 24. This is 7 years later, and this is how he looks now after all the experimentations that they did to him. So this is his human form. He's no longer got the blue eyes, he's got the hazel eyes now, so I made this really cool banner. It's the one that you see in the live right now. And so it has like the different versions of David. It's the two 17-year-olds, and then it says him in his human form and then in his vampire form. This right here is a list of, is a picture of the characters that are included in the book. So, so I can do this. Alright, so let's see. Start with, this is Caleb Keller, and he is Keller, and he's the one that takes him in initially, and he's the one that is a kind of the good doer in the community. He helps a lot of people with addiction. He also had a brother that has alcohol addiction and has been missing for a long time. So he's the one that kind of butts heads with David, because David just kind of wants to do what he wants to do, and he's not really used to somebody telling him giving him rules and telling him what to do. So a few times in the book where he's, you know, kind of disobedient to him. They have more like a, I wouldn't say a brother role, but maybe a father and son kind of dynamic that starts going on between them. You got, this is Max. It's a 17-year-old that Caleb kind of adopted from on the streets. And so Max is the one that is kind of like his assistant in the sanctuary with helping. And so there's that dynamic between Max and David, and a lot of funny moments with them. So I like that. I really like the character dynamic. So down here. So this guy here, let's see, a little too big there. This guy over here is David's actual father. This is billionaire foster writer. And once again, I use a lot, all these are from artreader.com, and there are ones that I wind up changing around in Photoshop. So this is Foster Rider. It's basically an aged version of David, just with some more added detail, the bigger forehead, the different, the suit, the gray in his hair, and the spectacles, so that you kind of know these are all on the back of the book. This is one character I won't get into too much right now, but I guess he's the main villain of the story. It's Dr. Winters, which is an alias that he has. I guess you would say he's pretty much the main guy that's behind all these experimentations on people. So it's in there. And let me show you someone else. This is Alberto D. Cruz. He was going to be like just a kind of a one-time character, and he wound up becoming one of the characters that shows up into in the story. He's basically like a rookie cop, and he kind of runs into David when David saves him and his partner from being attacked by this creature. So Alberto is kind of, he doesn't seem like he is very smart, but he's very smart, so he figures out a lot of things. And so he annoys David for this half of the story. And again, talk about like character dynamics. The dynamic between Alberto and David is like so funny. It's like I was just like literally laughing when I was writing their scenes together, because it was just, there's just this constant annoyance from David from this guy, and at the same time Alberto just loves it. He just kind of plays along with it, and he just I guess says stuff intentionally get on his nerves. So, but a lot of these are great characters, so I'm excited to actually share them with everybody. So this is going to be the last page of the book. And so that you can kind of see what the characters look like. So, and you know what they are. And I don't have them here, but I was going to do like, show like environments. I didn't add these to the book, because when I initially started like writing the story and everything, I kind of saw it more as a video game, and so I kind of went with that and started doing like these little 3D concept arts of the environments, because I think it can also be a video game, and I think it can be like a 3D animated movie, kind of like the Resident Evil. So I always kept that in the back of my mind as I was writing this book, like what scenes could be turned into video game levels. And so when I first, so I just kind of kept with doing that. So I have a lot of these environments, the basic environments of his time as in captivity and a little bit of when he's free. And so the only thing I haven't worked on, I have initial concept drawings, but I haven't worked on like the actual creatures that he fights as he gets into the superhero role. So this is a concept of an environment of the cell he's held in during his time of the experimentation. It's basically, it's like a hidden place, but it's like a bunker where they have it's like a asylum, but it's also like a hidden area. So let's see. So this is a picture of the outside of it, of the place he's held. So in the book, there'll be that part where he comes here, and then he goes into this place right here. It's just basically a junkyard, and it's like a hidden bunker there. It's where they had an asylum, at least in that world. And if we get into the story, let's see here. Again, these are like the concept environments for the book. I wish you could make it into a movie, or even like a comic book would be just as good. So here's the hallway in the asylum, and again, these are just pictures that are free, and I just went on the Photoshop and started editing all this texture and environments and stuff into it just to use as concept art. So if I do make it into a movie, I would use these as kind of like the inspiration to the graphic artists, the ones that would be designing the environments and everything. So, but yeah, basically this is where one of these doors is one of the cells that he's being held in, and then there's the main elevator, which is going to be it's kind of a character in itself during that first part of the series. Let's go to some more environments. Let's see. Alright, and this is the place where they experiment on David, where the final part of it takes place. Once again, pictures that I found on the internet, they're free, and just went ahead and started layering it, adding different things. So this will be the main area where David finally has his final procedure for the Project VII experiment. And I have, this is the sanctuary, this is the church that they made into like a makeshift emergency. So this is where they go into, and then with these back rooms is where David's going to be kind of staying, and then it leads down into some hallways. So, leads down to this tunnel, and this is where there's a kitchen, and there's a small lab, there's a radiation room, then there's one of their rooms, I think, here, or maybe not. I think their rooms are upstairs. I think this is the kitchen, but I'm not too sure. It was one of these. Well, that's what I was thinking anyways. Basically, it's a tunnel that's from the church, and it has like up here added this little kind of murals of Christ, and then it has the archways and then the modern lights added so that you can see where you're going in here. So this is, again, part of the sanctuary. And I got this alleyway. This is the alleyway where they find David. And this is kind of like the alleyway where David he kind of like has that experience where he's low on what he needs, and he has this almost this temptation to become the monster that they were trying to make him into, the facility. So he's kind of confronted with that, and he makes his choice not to go that way, because he knows if he does, then he's never coming back. He's always going to be a monster. And so that's kind of his struggle throughout this story. It's kind of trying to reassimilate to the way the world is at that time, to try to find his purpose and why he survived those experimentations, and, you know, why he's still alive, and so, and what his purpose is, and how he can, like, he still struggles with the fear that he won't be able to control himself. So a lot of that's in the story. And even though I finished writing part 1, there is going to be a second book, and that one I'm going to go ahead with the original title, which was Project VII, The Blood Chronicles. It's going to be the second title. And so that's going to go further into more kind of revelations of what's really behind everything. So you're going to kind of find out a lot more. And so it's just working to connect those two books together to where the first part and the second part come together and make sense. So as I said before, even though this is a story initially, I was going to make it into a comic book, but then all this stuff happened and I kind of put it on the back burner, so I just decided to just kind of write out something like a book, a novel version. And then after that, I'd say more in the recent years I started thinking about, well, maybe it would make a good video game, and of course it'd be a lot easier to kind of write it, and I thought about like trying to animate it myself, since like Blender's a program you can use, and of course Real Engine is also another one. But then I have to buy a lot of equipment and then learn how to do everything myself, and I mean, I think I can do like a good amount, but it's still a lot of work, and it would take a lot more time. So, you know, my book's done. It can be published this year, this summer. A comic book would take a little longer because I would need to find an artist that could do the work, condense the storyline into more like a graphic novel size, and so that would take a little bit more time. So as for right now, I'm just looking into doing the book. I'm going to talk to some voice actors about doing the audio book. So I think a lot of people don't have a lot of time to read books, or it's just kind of hard because there's so many distractions with your phones and the TVs and just things going on. And I think it'd be a lot easier to hear somebody just read it to them. And so, you know, I could do it myself, but again, you know, like, it's easier for me to like kind of just talk off the top of my head. But when it comes to reading stuff, for some reason, I just start reading things like wrong, and I don't know, it's just one of those things where you just you get nervous over it. So I don't know why that happens, but it's just like I would be having to do like 1,000 takes just to read like one chapter. But you know, I could always, you know, get somebody to do the voice acting and just to read through the characters. So let's talk about voices. Let's say we do make this into a video game or a 3D animation. Who would be the voices of the characters? I have 3 that are definitely picked out that I like and are related to Devil May Cry. So I think for Caleb, um, I guess a secondary character, I would say. I would love for him to be voiced by Ruben Langdon, who did the voice of Dante. I think, well, he's probably not as, he's a lot more serious than Dante is. I would say like he's like DMC2 Dante, but I guess in a better way. But I think that Ruben would do a good voice as Caleb. It was, and just because he has more of like, he is more serious in real life. I think he would do a good voice for Caleb as kind of the straight man, more serious. As for the main character, which is David. Let's see. The main character for David, I would love to have Johnny Bosch, who's the one that did the voice of Nero, to do the voice of David. I would say sound just kind of like Nero, but a little more, I guess, older, which I guess he can do now. He was a lot younger when he did Nero's voice. So I would, just the way he talks, I can just hear, like when I'm reading what I wrote from David, I can just hear Johnny's voice. It's just like so perfect to be David's voice. So if I could pick any actor, it would definitely be him. And if I could have somebody read the book, I think I would want him to do the voice of David Ryder. Let's see, do the purpose. And again, with DMC related, the voice of David's father, I think would, the perfect one to do it would actually be Dan Southworth, who did the voice of Virgil. I can hear him doing this voice of Foster. Some of the parts that are in this book, or he's talking to him, I think he's actually, maybe he is about as cruel as Virgil, or maybe a little more cruel in a like a corporate way. But again, he's one of those voices that I kind of like think he would do perfect as. Okay, so let's see this character. How about these two guys? Okay, so this is a character that David will meet when he's in captivity. And so the voice for this guy definitely would like to have Vic Mignogna. I'm actually approaching him to do the voice, to actually read the story, so that would be really cool if he could be able to do that. This character here, I can kind of picture the guy from Ant-Man. Forgot what his character's name is, but that comedian, Hispanic guy from Ant-Man. I think he would do a good voice as Alberto. The little bit of the accent and not as dumb. Or silly, just a little more straight. But I mean, he is pretty silly too. So I think I would need like somebody who has that comedic kind of value to them to do the voice of this Latino character. For Max, I guess anyone with a young voice, is it a guy or a girl, either way, we're going to do that. As some girls do some really good voice, kind of like boy voices, like the lady does Naruto and One Piece and all that, so. I'm leaning towards, since it's 17, a lady who can do that voice. So. Dr. Winters, the main bad dude, he's he has the alias of Dr. Winters, but he's a Nazi, like a leftover Nazi scientist that's kind of being used to do these experimentations. So you would have to be someone that has that can do a very decent German accent, that has a voice that can sound very like cruel, at the same time not really, kind of like a deceptive voice, older voice. So I haven't really thought of anybody that could do that voice, and account with the accent, so I'm not too sure, but it'd be like an older man, I guess, or a younger man that can do an older man's voice. So that's some of it, some of the information about Project VII. I said I have an editor looking at it right now, and I do have like several people that are reading it to kind of give me some pointers on it, some feedback, so that I can have those initial feedbacks when I begin the really pushing it out there. So that's it for now. It's my first podcast and live stream, and hope to do some more. We can talk more about the story, and hopefully we get some more people in, or somebody in. I can answer some questions, and hopefully I have a webcam by then, so that this will be a lot easier to do. But thank you for anybody who's tuned in, even for a second in passing. Appreciate you taking your time. And I hope that you'll be able to read the story, or hear it, or see it, and then you'll be able to let me know what you think about it. So, I'm signing off. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.